is our forum on opening up land, sea, and sky for global tourism. All right, if we are to welcome a greater number of visitors to our country and the significant business opportunities that they bring, we must ensure that mechanisms are ready to efficiently embrace the influx. With policies and practices that can address existing infrastructural challenges, elevate efficiency and service quality, as well as harmonize the standards in the region. Please welcome our distinguished guests. We have the Chairman and CEO of Ayala Corporation, Mr. Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala. The President and COO of Philippine Airlines, Mr. Jaime Bautista. The President and COO of Cebgo Incorporated, Mr. Alexander Lau. The Chairman of the Asean Business Advisory Council, Mr. Arin Jira. The Undersecretary for Tourism and Development Planning, Department of Tourism, Undersecretary Benito Bengzon Jr. And the Chairman and Founder of ILOVE, Investments in Loving Organizations for Village, Miss Regina Lopez. And of course, to facilitate the discussion, please welcome broadcast journalist and news anchor from ABS-CBN, Miss Karen Davila.
Morning. Good morning. Are you awake? Are you sure? Can you scream louder if you're awake? Very good. Well, I'd like to welcome all 7,000 of you. According to Joey, 7,000 of you are here. Students, small entrepreneurs, give yourselves a hand. You know what makes this forum really special is that tourism is big business and tourism can be your business. Do you agree? So our first panel for today will be talking to the big wigs in the business. So you'll be able to understand how they're going to make the Philippines a strong component of tourism in the ASEAN region. I'd also like to welcome, we have our interveners who will be joining us and they'll be asking the questions in behalf of the audience. Please welcome, first of all, former Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary, Ambassador Delia Domingo-Albert. Ma'am. The President of Global Entrepreneurship Network from Thailand, Dato Cheah. And of course, someone I've had on Head Start to answer the issues, no less than Mr. Brian Koo, one of the founders of Grab Philippines. So good morning to everyone. I took the mic over there. And to our panelists, I'd like to give you 1 minute to talk about your company. Our students, our small entrepreneurs are here, and to be able to share exactly how your company plays a role in the vision of building an ASEAN regional tourism network. Let's all start first with Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala, the Chairman and CEO of Ayala Corporation. Jaime, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Thank you very much. Special thank you to Joey for having Joey Concepcion for having convened this and having gotten us here. Of course, to Secretary Berna Puyat Reyes for the kind of momentum that she's given to tourism. Just in a couple of minutes, tourism has been a vital component of our economy. I think Secretary Puyat has been very eloquent in highlighting the kind of externalities that come with an expansion of the tourism industry. It affects not only individuals and employment, but also small businesses, many that must be run by all of you here today. From our perspective in the Ayala Group, we've seen it as a major growth component of the country, and we'd like to participate in it. Most of this is taking place through Ayala Land, which has a community building spirit and part of its expertise that it has developed over the years. So far, we have spent about 28 billion pesos in the tourism and estate industry. We've added about 3,000 rooms through the Fairmont Hotel, the Holiday Inn, the Seda Group, El Nido, and Sicogon. And we're trying to be complementary to the government's efforts on this front. We intend to spend another 32 billion pesos through to 2022 to expand to 6,000 room capacity and contribute to the industry. And bottom line, we are excited about what it can do. We're excited about what it can do for the country, and also through our many other infrastructure units, through our telecommunication facilities at Globe, and through our water systems. We're hoping to contribute to the infrastructure that's needed. We're also part, with great support from Mr. Concepcion as an advisor to the President in the consortium, together with our friends from Philippine Airlines and others as part of the consortium, to try and see if we can rehabilitate the International Airport of Manila, and we're part of that grouping too. Thank you, Karen, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Jaime. Next, another Jaime, Mr. Jaime Bautista, President and CEO of Philippine Airlines. Congratulations on your new planes.
Thank you, Karen. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Joey Concepcion for putting up this very important event. This is a very important sector in our economy. Tourism is really providing a lot of employment to our people. And at Philippine Airlines, we are really supporting it because we are in the business of transporting people from one point to another. Last year, we carried almost 17 million passengers, 8.5 million international and 8.5 million domestic. We have invested in new airplanes because we believe that tourists would like to have a very comfortable experience in flying to our country. So we have invested billions of dollars in new airplanes. Last year, we took delivery of 15 brand new airplanes. This year, we're taking delivery of 6 more brand new airplanes because this will help us provide the desired customer experience for our passengers and for tourists. We are also investing in new systems so that our passengers would have ease in booking, no? And we are also investing in people. We are training our people to see to it that utmost care is extended to all our passengers, no? And we're very happy to inform you that in the last few years, we've been garnering honors and awards. For your information, we were voted as the 49th best airline in the world last year.
Most improved.
Most improved, second most improved airline
Yes.
for 2019. There's another agency that gave us a 7-star rating in safety. So we're really investing. We're spending money to improve our service for the benefit of our passengers and for tourists. So these are some of the projects that we have implemented, and we will be happy to share more.
Thank you very much, Jaime. I'd like to encourage our panelists to keep the intro at 1 minute as we have more questions later on. Mr. Alexander Lau is the President and CEO of Cebu Pacific. Good morning.
Good morning, Karen. First of all, thanks to Secretary Concepcion and everyone else that came here. Tourism really is such an important, one of the important pillars in our economy. It is one of the most inclusive industries that we can have. I think the Filipino in general is such a happy and pleasant personality. It's very welcoming, and it's such a natural industry for us to come into. I think as Cebu Pacific, we carried 20 million passengers last year. We have, similar to Philippine Airlines, very many investments in aircraft that are going to be coming in over the next few years. This year alone, we will be taking delivery of around 12 aircraft, roughly 1 aircraft a month, and 41 over the next 4 to 5 years. So I think enabling connectivity, enabling tourism, enabling employment is one of our key responsibilities as one of the stakeholders in this industry. But of course, we're so much more excited to share more later as this panel goes along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Mr. Arin Hira, Chairman of the Asean Business Advisory Council of Thailand. Welcome to the Philippines, sir.
Thank you very much, Karen. First, I'd like to congratulate Joey Concepcion, the ASEAN-backed Philippines here, for organizing this one. You know that you've done something like this with about 10,000 people here. This is what Thailand cannot do. That's why I don't understand why your tourists are still 7 million and we're 38 million. But you'll come a long way and you'll be there. I mean, let me just mention something. I just want to say that this summit will create greater awareness and a difference in and for ASEAN as a single tourist destination. This is what we should be doing because we're going to have competitive activities that we're going to be seeing. This is going to bring attention to the developments of quality and qualification of tourism professionals. We have so many new tourist attractions everywhere, including the Philippines. Now, the Philippines, I want to stress something, and you can do much more in terms of sea connectivity because you have 7,500 islands, and this is something that you can showcase to the world, that Philippines is more fun, like you say. And Philippines is really more fun because of your great musicians all around your country. Now, this summit will entice also the government authorities to be more active in helping to promote tourism, realizing that the contribution of tourism sector will be very large to contribute to your GDP growth. This is something that we're very proud of in Thailand. We have about 22% of earnings from tourism as percent of GDP. Now, what's happening at the end, I think what we should do this. Today I learned something new. I learned the word bayanihan. Bayanihan is important, and I think we should collectively work to promote ASEAN region as the world's top tourist destination. Together, we can do it. So, bayanihan to me will mean this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is we have Undersecretary Benito Bengzon from the Department of Tourism.
I'll turn on my stopwatch to make sure that I stick to 1 minute.
Yeah.
Big congratulations to PA Joy Concepcion. Fantastic turnout that we have today. But very briefly, the Department of Tourism, as many of you are aware, is the primary government agency in charge of planning, developing, implementing, and monitoring the tourism industry in the country. I always want to highlight the fact that we have a roadmap for tourism. We call it the National Tourism Development Plan, perhaps one of the few agencies in government that has a blueprint. And the reason I emphasize this is that it's a constant reminder for us to keep within a certain framework whenever we implement our projects. The strategic thrust over the last several years has always been on inclusivity and sustainability. And as what Secretary Berna mentioned earlier, this will continue to be the thrust of the Department of Tourism to make sure that tourism as a whole becomes a platform not only for generating revenue, but more importantly, helping build communities, particularly at the local level.
All right, thank you very much. Gina Lopez, Chairman and Founder of ILOVE and an advocate for sustainable tourism.
Hello. So my interest in all of this is the welfare of our people. At the end of the day, no matter how many tourist arrivals we have, no matter whatever we have, if our people don't benefit at the ground level, it doesn't ring true for me. So what I have found is to make this happen, you need change agents. And that's why it's called ILOVE, Investments in Loving Organization, which is a change agent for village economies. What I would like to do is build the country from the bottom up. And so we're now dealing with the top 8 change agents after we had a contest and 128 applied. And these top 8 are now part of a reality TV show. I hope you're all watching G Diaries. And I'm happy to let you know that in this whole endeavor, we have a link up with National Geographic, which is 173 countries and 510 million subscribers. And what I earnestly want to do is drive traffic to all these sites, which is unbelievably beautiful. And so I hope that Cebu Pacific and PAL will continue to work with me so I can drive traffic to these sites and we can together bring our country out of poverty.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll discuss 2 themes in our panel this morning. First, we'll talk about the challenges on regional tourism, and then we'll talk about where local tourism is going. Alam nyo, if many of you know, yung ilan sa inyo, you've been to Europe, when you go to Europe, you'll make sure you visit 2, 3, 4 countries. Yun ang ginagawa ko, matipid na, marami ka pang nabisita. Pero Europeans, when they come over to Asia, they only tend to visit one country. Hindi nila habit na, ay, pupunta akong Thailand, I'll go next to the Philippines. They don't do that out of habit. Unlike us, when you go to the States, you go to different states. You go to Europe, you cross countries. Ang tanong nito is, what are the challenges? Why aren't we able to do this? Maybe I'll start with, very briefly, so everybody can have a say. Let's start with Arin. Most European nationals go to Thailand, or honestly next, they go to Bali. Why don't they have the habit of visiting other Asian countries? Go ahead, start, sir. Since you had 38 million tourists last year.
38 going on to 40, but it may take a few more years. But anyway, I think what's happening is this, because Thailand is really, we are at an advantage because our country is located right in the middle of the mainland.
Yes.
And so people, when they go there, they travel to, come on, not only Bali, it's really CLMV, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam.
Okay.
But today, it's different. Today, we have new technologies, and we've seen a lot of more PR campaigns from other countries. So I'm sure that visitors, when they arrive Thailand, they want to go to other countries, not only, you mentioned Bali, but now people want to come to the Philippines with this particular summit.
No, so my question is, what should we do as a region?
Oh, okay.
Yes. What should we do as a region to encourage foreigners to visit 3, 4 countries in ASEAN?
First of all, I think we should make sure that we have efficient border inspection,
Efficient border
faster
inspection.
immigration line. Let me give you one example. Yesterday, when we arrived at Naiya, it's a lot of people are coming back from overseas. I think the workers, and it was full of people. So what you should be doing, you should clear these people very quickly or put them to a different
special
line.
lane.
Yeah, something like this. When people come in, they say, "Oh, the lines are so light." They love it and they want to come back.
Yeah.
No, it's too long. It discourages them.
Okay, border inspection. Okay.
Single ASEAN visa is another one.
Yes.
Single ASEAN
But
would be.
will that ever happen?
That is never going to happen.
Okay. Well, at least you've said it.
No, we've been talking about this for some time. It's
Yeah.
work in progress. But hopefully one day this is going to happen when we get ourselves together.
Okay.
We also what we need is urgent broadband everywhere.
Yeah.
Today, I think what we should be doing is everywhere we go, free Wi-Fi, free internet broadband. This is the thing of the not too distant future, I hope. Now, the other thing is language and communication skills in service and industries. I really commend the Filipino people for language skills because you speak English. You can communicate with the world. People from Thailand, we don't speak English. The majority of our people don't speak English. What we do to attract 38 million people a year is to just smile.
Okay.
But, you know, everywhere
Yeah.
we go in Thailand,
Yes, yes.
we will see Filipino people in the service
That's true.
industries because they communicate in English and they can communicate with the world.
Yes.
This is the difference.
Okay. All right. Gina, before you get that, Arin said a very good point. One, he said he gave advice essentially moving forward on how we can improve an ASEAN regional tourism base. But he also talked about the location of Thailand. But yet Singapore, which is off location, it has $13.9 billion in tourism earnings. It's contributed to its GDP. So just very quickly, PAL and Cebu Pacific, what are the challenges you're getting? Why is it that, let's say, a German national that visits Thailand makes it harder for them to come to the Philippines as an automatic transfer? I mean, fares are expensive. I know you've tried to lower them, but if you go abroad, you have fares that are like $50.
Well, one, I think we really need to offer very good amenities to our tourists. No? In Manila, for one, the transit facility in our airport is not very comfortable, especially in Terminal 2. We have a very small transit area that makes the experience of our passengers not very good. No? So I think we really need to have a good airport infrastructure system that will be comparable with the facilities of other countries like Singapore or Thailand. And with those easy connections, we should be able to attract more tourists, fly to Manila, and then fly to other ASEAN destinations.
So that's one. What about you, Alex? Considering Cebu Pacific was the leader in opening the cheapest flights in the Philippines, and yet for foreigners, it's not cheap enough compared to other countries.
Well, I think a couple of things. First, if we take a look at the ASEAN in general, let's take a look at Singapore and how many tourists they have. It's really a hop away from Malaysia. No? So I think a number of Singaporean tourists or a number of tourists in Singapore are actually Malaysian. And it's so much easier for them to go across the border. Whereas the Philippines as an archipelago, we're sort of disadvantaged because we're disconnected. No? So certainly the physical nature of the Philippines is something to consider. Efficiency, certainly in terms of connectivity, is going to be very important. No? So I think when we take a look at our current realities, at least in the Philippines, are we able to grow our existing capacity? Because if we're able to grow our existing capacity, that allows more competition to come in, that allows fares to go down, and ultimately, a much more, robust infrastructure will enable airlines to lower fares because obviously they have to compete with one another. No? So I think certainly the location is going to be one. Policy is probably another. We have to take a look at how easy is it for people to come in to Southeast Asia, or how even in the Philippine context, how do we make it easy for tourists to come in? So let me give an example. So in Taiwan, which has been such a popular destination for Filipinos recently, what have they done? They've said any Filipino who comes into Taiwan is now visa-free. Is it reciprocal though? Do we allow Taiwanese to come here to the Philippines on a visa-free basis?
Yeah.
That's
No.
something we have to consider.
Is it or no?
It's not currently,
yeah.
but is it something that we can consider? So again, where we are located, what our policy is, and ultimately infrastructure that will allow more efficient transport to happen.
Yeah, these are really good insights on policy. I wanted to ask Jaime, then Gina after. Do you think, Jaime, that the experience of Ayala, Ayala's been a formidable leader in terms of, number one, how you've taken care of the El Nido group of islands, how you've practiced sustainable tourism even when it was not fashionable. Honestly, you were doing it in the 70s and 80s already. Do you think the Philippines is frankly ready to be to be a global leader in the ASEAN regional tourism map?
No, thank you, Karen. First, I'd like to recognize, I see Governor Alvarez of Palawan here. We're very grateful to Governor Alvarez for all the support that he's given us in the region. We're believers that you're going to create a community ecosystem when you develop these areas. We built up some expertise in building communities from the real estate front, in industrial settings, in office settings, residential, and we felt, why not do the same thing for the tourism sector? I think a lot of the things that have been mentioned by others, Gina as well, about the need for sustainability was highlighted also by the Secretary earlier. Sustainability is more than just about the environment. Sustainability is about the environment, it's about the social, cultural, and community centricness of the development that you have. And finally, it's also about the economic qualities of it. I think those three areas, Karen, are areas that we try to put an emphasis on as we try to develop larger estates focused on tourism. I think people want to be able to feel an authenticity to the place. I think there is a massive new respect for the environment and how it is treated. I think people want to travel to a place that they feel is in harmony with nature in whatever way there is. And to a certain extent, by being able to harness all these different elements and create them within a broader community, then hopefully you create the kind of atmosphere that will attract others. Bottom line, what we're trying to do is to build some of that sense of community and bring the elements of sustainability to the whole effect of a specific area. We've been very lucky in the Palawan area. It's a chance to have started to master plan this in a bigger way. We're still very much at the beginning of the process. We get a lot of support from the governor and from many of the local government communities. But bottom line, it's also integrating the way you work with the community there. And I think, Karen, one aspect that's been missing in the discussion is the need for inclusivity in the way we work and the way we create things, and bringing the community to also benefit from it, from the hiring, from I guess all the supplies that come from the area, from the contractors, trying to make this a success by integrating the community also into the development agenda.
Okay, very quickly before I go to Gina, because you're going to talk about this passionately, is considering El Nido was number one, it was a number one destination in Condé Nast. It was on the cover. What challenges do we have, Jaime, why Phuket, for example, has more tourists than El Nido?
Well, I think it's a much more complex issue. I think our friends from the airline industry were addressing it. There are many components of it. I think tourism will succeed, not just because of the physical.
Are we really more expensive?
I think it has less to do with expense and more about the ease of entry and exit. It's been referred to on a number of different occasions. Just think about any of you when you travel. It's become a difficult process in so many ways. The easier you make it, the more hassle-free, and we're 7,000 islands, movement between our country, creating regional hubs rather than just relying on one hub and spoke out of Manila, allowing some of the domestic airports throughout the country to be able to bring in tourists directly, making it easier to move from one place to another, I think is part and parcel. It's not just about price. And in a way, I also feel for the airlines, fuel prices go up, they have to be economically sustainable as entities too, because if not, you don't have an airline to move people in and around. I think more important, of course, price is important, but you've got to create a whole system, the way the infrastructure works together with the locations, together with the feeling. It's part of a bigger problem. So actually, in the end, tourism is about integrating many components of our economy and making them work, from the people, the infrastructure, the locations, and the preservation, I guess, of our heritage.
All right. Now, Gina, how can small entrepreneurs, yes, you can react to that. Okay, go ahead. Yes, please.
Sir, sorry.
Sir, you
what
mean...
was your, what was his name again?
Are you?
Your-
Do you mean Mr.
Thailand.
Arin? Yes.
Arin.
He's the ASEAN Business Advisory
Sir,
Council.
I know how to
Chairman.
bring your 38 million here. Marketing, okay? It's like we have so much here. We have a place in the Philippines where the people live till over 100 because we have 7 sacred trees. And maybe that's my answer also. That's my recommendation to DOTs that we have even barely begun to scratch what the Philippines has. Imagine in Tawi-Tawi, where I'm going right after this, the lobster mates with the fish, the lobster mates with the shrimp, and then the lobster mates with the crabfish.
Okay, Gina.
So what I want to say, sweetheart, if I can say
Yes.
it, is that the Philippines has so much and so much and so much. And if you can be allowed to market in your place, I'll bring all the 38 million here. And to my reply to PAL and Cebu Pacific, if we have traffic, then you can bring down the price because if you have volume, and we can create the volume by discovering the beauty and the grandeur of what we have in this country beyond no other.
Yes.
We have so much more
Yeah.
than, I love Boracay and
So,
I love
Gina,
Jaime, yeah.
you just said the magic
So
words.
much.
We have so much.
So much.
Then-
And we have barely begun to scratch
So
what we
what
have.
is the problem?
Because we
We
don't
have so much, and yet tourism does not contribute that much to our GDP
Because-
just yet. So what is it?
Because I feel and I know that the DOT really needs to explore more. And you need to get partners on the ground. Because no matter how beautiful it is on the ground, if you don't have a change agent on the ground with integrity, with compassion, it just doesn't work. So the key to success is the change agent on the ground.
Okay, I like that. Change agent on the
Change
ground.
agent on the
All
ground.
right. Okay, DOT perhaps, just you skim through the challenges that were all mentioned. They were quite good, the observations.
Well, let me try to address a couple of points that were mentioned earlier. First is that officially at the ASEAN level, we have what we refer to as the ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan. So there is such a master plan that promotes the 10 member states as just one region. And there are initiatives at the sub-regional level that promotes various combinations. You have BIMP-IAGA, Greater Mekong Sub-Region,
But
so on
are
and so
we
forth.
on track?
Now, the challenge that the Philippines faces is that we are not part of that larger contiguous areas which are all connected to Bangkok. So geographically, Bangkok has a bit of an advantage, especially for you tourists coming from Europe, because you are the natural gateway. Because the Philippines is an archipelago and almost entirely dependent on air access, 98%, as the Secretary mentioned, we need to step up airport infrastructure. We need to have a more liberalized civil aviation policy. We need to expand our capacity to absorb. Now, to put things in perspective also, because sometimes there's this very lengthy debate. Are you okay, Gina? Okay. There's this lengthy debate on why this country gets more than 30 million, this country gets 25 million, and the Philippines only gets a little over 7 million. But to put things in perspective, if you were to extract just the number of air passengers, we are not too far off. Because many of those that are in the CLMV area get a lot of cross-border traffic. They just hop on the bus and then they're counted. So the point is, we need to improve access. The second thing that I'd like to point out, and I'm very happy that the bigwigs of the airline industry are here. We work very closely with Cebu Pacific and Philippine Airlines, precisely because we need air connectivity. On the matter of GDP,
But I'm curious, other than air connectivity, why not cruise tourism?
Or
I
also-
mean, under that ASEAN Tourism Strategic Plan, it seems that cruise tourism has really grown. And he's mentioned that the Philippines, being an archipelago, could focus on essentially really, I mean, I would ride a cruise around the Philippines.
we get about 150,000 cruise passengers a year. Right now,
That's low.
that's still low when you compare it to other established cruise destinations. Right now, most of the cruise ships that come our way are on a day trip. meaning the ship docks in the morning, passengers get off, 5 o'clock, the passengers go back to the ship, and it sails off to the next destination. This is fine for now, but strategically what we should be aiming for is to establish Manila or any other seaport as a hub for turnaround operations or fly crews, as they call it, because no other destination in Southeast Asia or perhaps in Asia offers the kind of diversity that the Philippines offers. And strategically, this is what we should be looking at. But again, just to assure you, we do have a master plan for cruise tourism. We're implementing it. We've identified already all the major cruise destinations, and that will continue to help access into the Philippines.
Okay, Arin, you have to give me a minute. I'll give our interveners a chance to ask all of you some questions. If you can make your question brief and the answers on point. Go ahead, Ambassador Delia. Yes? Oh, the mic doesn't work? Go ahead, our interveners.
Before they work, let me say this.
Yes,
I have
okay.
one recommendation for the Philippines, to bring in the 38 million that go to Thailand to the Philippines. Very simple, if you're willing to do it. People who travel to, you make a campaign maybe for a couple of months, make a campaign and say, if you travel to Thailand with additional $100 US, you go to the Philippines by
Yes.
Cebu Pacific.
That's true.
The Philippines airline, valid for 2 months. Come on, let's do it. And then
Yes, yes.
when it's
That
over,
would
you
be
do it
good.
again. I'm sure
Yeah.
you get some more tourists from Thailand to the Philippines, right like that.
I agree with that. Teka, quickly, is that even feasible? Cebu Pac or ano?
Additional.
Thailand, just additional, $100 US
Yeah.
to the Philippines.
I'm not asking for 100,
Yeah.
100 peso.
$100, yeah. Is that feasible? Cebu Pacific, Pal, quickly lang, yes or no?
We're a member of a group of airlines called the Value Alliance, which is really in Southeast Asia. So we do have those cooperations already in place. It's probably cheaper than $100.
Really? It is?
Yeah, it can be.
It
Can
can
be.
be.
Can
But
be.
we are not doing that campaign.
No, we are. I mean, internally within the airlines, of course.
Yeah, but not in a nation's,
But we do as
in a national
You have to
scale.
cooperate with the Thai authorities.
Yes.
I think you should do that.
Okay.
As part of the airline group, we do advertise these sales, so we're able to connect people from Singapore
Yeah.
and all the other member airlines.
Okay. Then, Ambassador Delia, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to commend Joey. I think ASEAN, being 50 years old, has always been a government-led organization. And by bringing us together here with such a crowd, I must really commend Joey and his efforts and the Department of Tourism for bringing what is the big criticism of ASEAN that is only talked about in hotel lobbies. Today, it's being talked about in such a huge forum like this, and this is welcome to everyone. Especially, I would like to cite Thailand. After all, Thailand is the birthplace of ASEAN, and so we have a lot to learn from you, and I hope that the 38 million will think clearly and come to the Philippines. But my question is to everyone.
Okay.
Let us help Joey get across to decision makers in this country to do one thing that will come out of this session. If each one of you can cite one specific thing that Joey will put in his memorandum
Very
for the
good.
president,
Yeah.
so that it can be acted upon with a timetable, etc., then we would have done the public a great favor. Thank
Okay,
you.
hold that thought. That's a good thought. Gina, one specific policy that Joey can add as a recommendation to President Duterte that would come from this summit to improve the Philippines as a major player in the ASEAN tourism hub. Okay.
I would say to put up a budget to with the where's Joey? Yeah, there. I really, 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 really feel we need to explore the product more because you want people to come, but what product are we offering? The product we're offering is barely scratching the surface of what we truly have. And I feel we need to set up a policy wherein we explore areas in the Philippines and work together with change agents. Then we can bring people here and we have the facility and the structure and the system so that our people will benefit. I can work together with you on that. It's the way to go.
All right. Wait, can I have the mic? Maybe Jaime, so we'll do private first for this because the DOT is government. You make policy. So what if there's one policy that can be recommended coming from the forum, improving the Philippines' stature and setting in the ASEAN tourism map, what would it be?
Well, I think if we could upgrade the whole airport system throughout the country, not just the international airport in Manila, which of course is important, but all of the other regional ones and make them international in standard
Yes.
and allow people to fly in directly to all aspects of the country.
Yeah, so that's one, yes. You want, okay, Gina wants to add another one after Jaime, okay.
No, a policy because you were asking for policy. So my policy, Joey, is area development. To put up a policy of a commitment to area development, which is discovering the strengths, the beauty, the potential of the area, and a non-negotiable commitment to the people living there. That's my policy recommendation.
Okay, area development, developing airports, international standards all over the provinces. Arin, hold that thought. From Cebu Pacific and PAL, quickly, what policy can Joey recommend to the President?
I will support the statement of Mr. Ayala that we really need to have competitive airport infrastructure. No?
Yeah.
We cannot just increase flights right now because of non-availability of slots in Manila.
Yeah.
So maybe we should really fast-track the construction and modernization of the Manila International Airport, no?
Yeah.
And support the consortium. No? And in addition to that, I think we really need also to offer affordable hotel rooms for our tourists.
Okay, that's good. We're not affordable enough. I mean, Jaime, quickly. Well, define affordable. Because, you know, I have a friend that goes to Japan and it's like 1,000 pesos a night. Maganda pa yung hotel with breakfast.
I think the way it works, Karen, is you've got to create, everything has to be aligned. You can't just create one piece. The easier it is to bring people in, the more momentum there is, the more volume there is, the more capacity, as Jimmy Bautista mentioned. That creates economies of scale that then allows volume into the country, then allows you to bring down price. It's very hard to say, let's just focus on one piece and it'll happen. The whole system has to work, which then goes back to what the Department of Tourism is trying to do, together with other members of the cabinet, which is to create an integrated framework. All the pieces have to work together to be able to bring prices down. And that comes from economies of scale.
Okay. Cebu Pac, did you want to respond? And then I'll have Arin and DOT. Policy, just one policy.
Certainly agree with the statements echoed earlier. I would like to go back to ease of access in terms of an immigration policy. So Thailand, for example, has 38 million visitors, but I think a third of that is probably coming from China. 10 million,
It's
12
good, Joey,
million.
ease of access.
10 to 12 million of Thailand's visitors are coming from China via air. Now, what do? It's visa upon arrival. So it makes it much easier for a tourist to come into Thailand, visit their destinations, number one. Number two, they've also waived any fees with regards to visa upon arrival until October of this year. That's huge. So it encourages people to actually travel because the Philippines is still a relatively cheap destination compared to other parts of the world. Now, since we're already cheaper, how do you make it easier for people to come here? Infrastructure, airports, and of course, at the end of the day, is it easy for someone to come into the Philippines and visit here?
I like that advice because it's doable, frankly. I mean, it's something the government can do. Arin, you wanted to add?
Yes. In fact, when I'm sitting over here and look at those three persons out there, I thought I'm on Philippines Got Talent.
Okay. So
Anyway.
you have a sense of humor.
Anyway, my point is this. You've talked about, improved transport, other infrastructures, but I only have one point for Joey to talk to my idol, President Duterte. I have to go like this. Enhance tourism security and standards to protect tourists. This is very important because
Again, can you repeat?
you have to enhance tourism security, the standards to protect tourists. Right now, when we walk all over the place, we see a lot of, maybe army carrying guns, walking around. That's a bit scary, But if you can reduce that and make sure that the security and safety of tourists is there, the people will come to the Philippines.
Yeah. I like your recommendations. They're so unique. It's coming from your perspective as head of the ASEAN Advisory Council. The DOT, Usec, what policy is in the works or what do we need?
How I wish DOTR was represented here
I
because
know.
the
Yeah.
first three policy or proposed policy intervention centered on airport
Infra.
development and access. But maybe just to provide some numbers, we share your views. We want Manila to be upgraded immediately. Right now, it handles about 42 million passengers. And just to put things in perspective, the busiest airport in the region now is Beijing, handling about 100 million. Suvarnabhumi, I think, 60, 65. So if you want to bring the numbers up, necessarily the capacity to absorb has to expand as well. Now, the airport expansion is not only confined to Manila. Part of the wish list also would be to accelerate the night rating of the remaining 20 secondary airports
Yeah.
because this will help decongest Manila.
Okay, I'm curious, of the 7 million tourists that arrived in the Philippines or that we had, are those foreign tourists or domestic tourism is included in the 7 million?
No, 7.1 million is just foreign visitors.
Okay.
And just to add another important figure, because you talked about GDP, the contribution of tourism to GDP is about 13%, which is above average. That's number one. We generate about 7.8 billion US dollars. And in terms of forex generation, I think we're number 3. So we're not doing too bad.
Yeah, 7 billion, yeah, because Vietnam is at 12 billion, so it's not that, I agree. Okay, now another intervener I'd like to call in. Mr. Brian Koo, would it be okay if you choose one panelist to answer your question?
Sure, I guess my question can be answered by any of the panelists. But before that, I'd like to say thank you to PA Joey and all the panelists for really having this open discussion and arranging this so tourism in the Philippines can really be promoted. So I heard a lot about of talk around infrastructure, on marketing the Philippines better. But most of these can only be done by large institutions or by government bodies. Now, as an SME and all the other students or SMEs here, what do you think we could do as participants in this whole tourism space to help promote the Philippines and attract tourists? Or are we just here to wait for foreign tourists to come in before we can act?
Okay, that's a great question. Gina, I'll let you take the lead. What can small entrepreneurs do to take the lead also in attracting the tourists?
In my journeys throughout the country, I've found, and this is putting it mildly, a wealth of natural resources, just unbelievable. And I feel that this wealth of natural resources contains a gold mine, in quotation mark, of things which entrepreneurs can get into. And if entrepreneurs get into it, one, they'll make money, but two, they'll make money by kicking ass the entire local economy. So I strongly suggest that as the entrepreneurs go around and look at the possibilities there and engineer business ventures and systems, but include the people in it.
When you say include the people, I think you have to be specific for our audience. Give examples of when you say include the people.
Okay, so I'm talking here of social entrepreneurship, like not entrepreneurship where only you're making the money and they're just hired labor. I'm talking here of entrepreneurship where there is an objective I mean, you can make money, but everybody else makes money. And I think that kind of system is what we want to put in the country. Yeah, I'm doing it now with the Benguet farmers, and it's doing really well.
Okay, all right. I'd like to address our guest also, another intervener, the president of Global Entrepreneurship Network from Thailand, Dato Steve Cheah. Do I call you Dato or Steve?
Steve is fine, thank
Steve.
you. Thank you, Karen. Again, Joey, thank you for arranging this. When I was invited to be the intervener for this project, I'm not from the tourism business, but I am in the entrepreneurship ecospace system. And what we do is to work with a lot of disruptive businesses. I've been hearing a lot of comments, learning about the geographical and the infrastructural constraints that we have, from fares to hotels to airports and so on. While that's very, very good and should be discussed, it takes time to improve all this. Let me create a new space here, and that space is in the disruptive business. Because if you look at the previous generation, the X generation has created a whole new generation of people coming to experience ecotourism, Airbnb. We have the millennial generation now who's grown up with games and virtual realities. Okay? So the question will come, but let me explain. For example, now the new generations are starting to be very comfortable with virtual reality. They could come and travel in the Philippines virtually. You need to monetize that. Are the policies looking into that? Before they come to the Philippines, they could go diving in the machine at home, wherever they are. Or they could go on a drone and visit all the islands. You can see that the market has created. In the past, before you come to the Philippines, you could maybe watch a TV program and say, interesting, let me go there. Then the whole new business of people doing travel blogs. They are making money from travel blogs. From YouTube though, why don't we look at policies where we could create local people to create business, and they could be providing this virtual business as a new disruptive industry that hasn't been really looked at. But we all know, if you know enough about this, there is money to be made, and it is a sustainable business, because although traditional tourists or people physically coming here is a very important component, a contribution to the economy, the whole disruptive business of virtual business is also a very sustainable reality.
Okay, maybe the DOT, can you react to that? Have you considered that? Virtual realities in a way to, other than it makes money, it could seduce, induce, influence?
Well, as a platform for promoting the Philippines as a destination, we've actually used virtual reality technology. We've used it in our booth exhibitions in World Travel Mart, all these big events. And I think this is something that we will continue to make use of to provide what I consider a preview of what the would-be traveler to the Philippines can actually experience. But of course, at the end of the day, what we want is the actual travel. But as a platform, we do use VRs in many of our marketing and promotions.
All right. Now, there are a lot of government representatives here. I want to ask Jaime, how can the government and the private sector work together in a much better way to boost tourism in the Philippines, based even on the Ayala experience?
Well, I think it's already happening. I think the Department of Tourism has been very inclusive in bringing the private sector in. I think they gave the secretary, when she talked about the number of examples where she's working with the airlines. I think we just have to come to terms with the fact that this is a partnership, that the public sector and the private sector can work hand in hand to find solutions to things. And sometimes that is less technical, it's more personal. It's how you create team approaches to tackling problems. I would just say maybe, of course, it's a complex series of problems, but the more team-based solutions where the government and the private sector work hand in hand to find solutions to issues, defining that issue together and then solving it together would go a long way. I know that sounds somewhat conceptual, but if that can be achieved rather than us versus they, then we can achieve so much more. We're all in this together, and any success that comes will benefit all parties and all society.
Jaime, I'm curious if infrastructure has right-of-way issues when it comes to building more, let's say, tourism-based businesses. Ayala and other private companies, do you have other problems in terms, let's say, of the ease of doing business locally with mayors, governors? Does government make it hard for businesses, frankly, to put up tourism businesses?
I wouldn't use the word problems. I would use the word challenges. I mean, there are always challenges in getting anything done. We're a democratic society. People have, rights, and those must be respected. We must respect the laws. I think if one can create a sense of objective together, be it at the local government level, the national government level, and the private sector, if you have an objective, then agree on that objective and then work hand in hand as a team. Most things can get solved. I think to a certain extent we all work a little bit in silos right now, and we haven't found ways of working together. And that's why I commend gatherings like this, which are convening gatherings where different points of view get brought together. If we can find the mechanism, the catalyst to create that sense of working together for a common cause and a common objective, then it's amazing what can get done, because the bayanihan spirit is very strong in our country. I have no doubt about that. Unfortunately, it only comes out in times of crisis, when problems happen, typhoons and the like. Everybody comes together, right? Sana we came together when there wasn't a crisis, no? But I think it can be harnessed. It takes some personal skills, but if we can bring ourselves to work, all of us hand in hand, so much more can be achieved. But we need objectives and things that we can align ourselves to.
All right, Gina, you were once in government. I mean, frankly, what are the challenges in terms of, now you advocate for sustainable tourism and inclusion in the local level, having the stakeholders there. What do you feel can government do better to support your advocacy, for example?
So number one, I totally agree with what Jaime said of working together and planning. And what I think should be done in government is to work together at the ground level. Because they plan, and actually sometimes they work in silos. But are we making a difference on the ground? Are people getting out of poverty? And I feel what we need are models on the ground. And that's why change agents are important, where we implement things of working together, as what Jaime said, on the ground with particular situations. And then you set up models which show, hey, pwede pala. Kaya-kaya natin.
Can you share a success story that you've seen yourself wherein the local government unit actually involved the stakeholders on the ground and now it works?
Well, like for example, in Sorsogon, no? I've worked there, and the mayor's really good there. And on the we put in 1.5 million pesos, and now in 2 years the community has made 10. That's not bad at all, no?
Definitely.
And I think
give that a hand.
I think Pepito is here.
Yeah, there.
Where is Pepito?
San Vicente, no?
Yeah, is he here? Okay, in
There,
Palawan, we have a project in Palawan where we put in 1 million pesos in Ugong Rock, and at one point the community hit 29 million.
Wow.
My God, in heaven.
Oh.
And that's all audited. So it can be done. We can work together.
Yeah.
If government and the private sector actually come up with training things on the ground with a good change agent there.
Yeah.
And plus I have media, no?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can put it on TV. Like the possibilities are tremendous.
Okay. All right. Both our airlines, I'm curious, open skies policy has been very controversial. Will it help or will it affect your business?
Philippine Airlines supports a fair open skies policy. No? We believe that competition is good for everyone, because that will make us more efficient. We should be able to work efficiently using our resources. No? And with that open skies, I think we should be able to also offer affordable fares to everyone because of competition. No?
So when you say you want fair open skies policy, what do you feel was unfair as what was proposed? Just quickly.
Well, there are instances that we have open skies, but we cannot fly to certain destinations because of non-availability of slots
Yeah.
in that destination.
So it's not fair to you. Yeah, I mean the airline, I get it. We open it here, but they don't open it for us there.
Because of lack of slot in that particular airport.
Yes. All right, what about Alex?
I think for Cebu Pacific, we've always been supportive of ASEAN Open Skies. We have had no issues with it. I think, if anything, there needs to be improvements in its implementation. So standardization of, for example, applications across countries.
Yeah.
For example, can Cebu Pacific open an airline in another part of Southeast Asia without any capital? Not saying that we will,
Yeah.
but can we do that without any capital restrictions? I think the Philippines and Indonesia, for example, are very have laws that limit the foreign investments in terms of how much a particular investor can invest in an airline. I know the government has made the Public Utilities Act a priority, and certainly we look forward to that. Similar to what Jimmy earlier mentioned, we're excited to compete. We love open skies. We want more people to come here to the Philippines, or we love the idea of more people traveling within Southeast Asia. Open skies has been there for a long time. Now we hope that the infrastructure can follow so we can actually add in more aircraft and add in more destinations and make it more attractive for people to fly.
All right, the DOT, what's your stand on open skies?
Well, I share the views of our partners from Philippine Airlines and the Cebu Pacific. Open skies cannot be absolute. We always have to look at the national interest. We have to look at the interest of the airlines. And this is precisely why we have an air negotiating panel that sits down with its counterparts, reviews all the proposals in the MOUs or the air service agreements, so that at the end of the day, we're able to take note of the strategic factors that will enable the growth of tourism. But as I mentioned earlier, the Philippines has already adopted a liberalized civil aviation policy. This is something that we hope the government will continue to pursue, because air access is more crucial in the case of the Philippines than it is for the other member states of ASEAN.
All right, Arin, do you want to react on that, on open skies?
Yeah, I like it. You know, but if open sky means cheaper fares to fly around, that's good. Open skies, even restrictions here, that's bad. That's all I have to say.
Do you feel it's a factor why Philippine tourism hasn't reached its peak?
I
Is
know.
a certain resistance to...
I think the authorities should work together and decide that, you know, they should make it freer. And most of all, I think what they need to do is to look at secondary cities that these, you know, airlines can fly to. There's so many options, unlimited potential in this thing.
Yeah.
If they really work together, I think they can move ASEAN together and, you know, make sure that we are registered in the world that, hey, this is a top destination for tourism here in this area.
All right, I know that we've discussed a lot already. I'll ask one more from our interveners, Ambassador Delia, before Joey reacts, and then we can close the panel. Ambassador?
Thank you. I think we have covered quite a bit. We talked about improving ASEAN as a regional destination. We talked about investment in infrastructure, removal of barriers, and talked about competitive marketing. One thing I think that ASEAN has to face up, since we're looking at a global market, is what some economists call co-opetition. Competition has been ongoing within and among ourselves in ASEAN, but I think what's important is that our competitor is out there, not within ASEAN, but outside of ASEAN. How do you think ASEAN would be able to cope with co-opetition, meaning cooperation among ourselves as ASEAN, in order to be competitive out there in the global market?
Okay, that's a good one. You know what, Gina, I'll have you take that. I mean, it's the ASEAN mindset of competition, and it's not the mindset of co-opetition. Meaning ASEAN, it's always been a challenge for many years now that some say the reason ASEAN hasn't worked as well as the European Union is the mindset of Asians, that Asians are extremely competitive against each other.
This is what I know, that if we work together, it's 1 + 1 = 100. We'll build on each other's economy, we'll build on each other's strength, we'll strengthen each other's strengths, and we need to plan an economy which is beneficial for everyone. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
If we're going on an attitude of competition, it just doesn't work.
All right. Jaime, what about you? You've traveled all over ASEAN. Even you've been actually putting up businesses, frankly, all over Asia already. What are you seeing in terms of the mindset of us Asians that it seems it's a difficult road to something like the EU?
Well, I mean, the EU came together for a whole set of different reasons. Europe was at war with each other since the 1400s, and they had to find a way to put an end to that. It's a whole different set of parameters that made the EU what it is today. I like to think the opposite. I do believe that there is more of a sense of community in Southeast Asia than ever before, frankly, Karen. I've seen us come together as countries jointly, and there are areas where we can work together to market ourselves as a region. Any momentum that basically comes into ASEAN will help ASEAN. In fact, I had one idea that I was going to mention to Joy, but I'll say it publicly. There are many areas where we all work together. We have the Southeast Asian Games at the end of the year, and this was actually an idea that came from Tony Fernandez, so I'll credit it to him. Why don't we call it the ASEAN Games? Southeast Asian Games and the ASEAN are exactly the same countries. There's no country out of it. I've always wondered, why don't we call it the ASEAN Games? It would be a spirit of community in sports that come together once every so often. I've always wondered why we don't market it as that. I think we have to find ways of attracting attention that are communal in nature, and I think it can be done, Karen. But frankly, I'm more optimistic than you seem to sound. I think there's been a strong spirit of growth that's taken place in our economies in the region that has attracted the world. I see more and more articles about Southeast Asia as a grouping. I see more and more attention from a business perspective to Southeast Asia. The key is to make business movement between our countries easy, travel between our countries easy, and at least a commonality of spirit about our region and how we would like to sell ourselves. The rest will compete with each other like other countries do.
Very well. Arin, you are with the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. Just quickly, so what challenges have you seen in terms of ASEAN to move it to co-opetition instead of competition?
To me, it's really competitive immunity.
Community.
Immunity for ASEAN.
Sorry.
Immunity.
Immunity.
for ASEAN. You know, you can compete with people outside of ASEAN. That's not very difficult. Now, I'm very concerned about what's happening in ASEAN today during the fourth industrial revolution. And the most important, the most critical factor is the high-speed internet, broadband access that should be available freely in ASEAN. This is going to move, make us move pretty fast in terms of competition. This is something that the government
people clapping
and the private sector should work together and get this thing done. A lot of talks from the government, not only in Thailand, but around ASEAN. But we need to do that. Once we have that, we can move through the fourth industrial revolution freely, and this will bring ASEAN a little bit higher up in the scale. And people look at us and say, this is really the region to look out for.
Okay, now Joey, I'd like you to have the floor as a closing reactor. You can stand up. Yes.
Basically, in answer to the earlier question on what to advise the president, Jaime would know this. As far back a couple of months, we've been working on really trying to improve the E, and that's how the Group of Seven was born. The challenge really is a second runway. And where do you put that next runway? And that's where the link eventually will be, where eventually Sangli could be the second runway. The importance really of, if you look at Thailand, I really never went back to Thailand after you had so much traffic. But about 3 years ago, I was shocked to see that the freeway connects from the city directly to the airport. And when you leave Thailand, if you fly Singapore Airlines, and you travel business class, you have free massage. No? So maybe Paul and Cebu Pacific should give a free massage.
Unrelatable naman yung experience mo sa marami. Oh, talaga may masahe pa. Okay.
So, in other words, if you go to the airport, and they're always expanding their airport. They have enough land to really expand. There are no delays. People know when they fly and when they don't fly. In our airport, actually, when it gets clogged in AIA, Cebu gets clogged. They can't take off. So, the real challenge really here, in the end, is we solve the airport problem. Not only in Manila, but all over. And Bohol has its own airport. And hopefully, Governor Alvarez will be able one day to land an Airbus 320 down in Palawan, whether it's in somewhere in maybe in Taytay or wherever. An Airbus 320 is the most economical plane to fly directly. So if we can't land in Metro Manila, then maybe they can access these islands directly. So we are really working it, and I'm told that there's progress, and hopefully within the next month there will be an announcement that the public-private partnership with the IAA will move forward, and it has to happen.
That's news. Is it coming in the next month?
No, I mean, 3 weeks ago we had a meeting with the president together with the conglomerates, and that's what I really pleaded to the president. We have to make a decision to make it work, and I think the president, as you see, he's a man of action. And the remaining 3 years of the president, we really have to create a greater shared economy, where Filipinos can feel the impact that their lives are being improved. And of course, many people are moving overseas to get better pays, better work. But then the opportunity is here by just creating the right environment, and together with the public-private partnership we have with the Department of Tourism, and we have had working good relationship with Secretary Mon in Department of Trade. It's working. I think it's going to happen, and I think that's why we have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of Filipino entrepreneurs who are already betting on putting up hotels all over the country. The prices of land in Siargao has shot up, and I mean, everywhere land in these beautiful islands are moving up. And I agree with the recommendation of Jaime. Why don't we call the Southeast Asian Games Arin and propose that with the council and try to push for it, call it the ASEAN Games. So at least we really can show that spirit of ASEAN in sports.
All right, bravo, Joey. I have to say congratulations to you. The words I pleaded with the president. All right, everybody, I want to thank our panelists this morning. Jaime Zobel, Jaime Bautista, Alexander Lau, Arin Jira, welcome to the Philippines, sir. Undersecretary Bengzon, and Gina Lopez.